Welcome to today's lesson on comparing and ordering sets of real numbers. Our do now question reads, Dana placed the following points on a number line, point P at negative 24 over 3, point Q at negative 9 over 2, point R at 7 over 2, point S at 15 over 3. Then we're given this number line with the points on it. Which point is not correctly placed on this number line? So the first thing that we're going to do is convert all of these fractions into decimals. So negative 24 over 3 is the same thing as negative 24 divided by positive 3, and so that's going to be negative 8. We have negative 9 over 2, which is the same thing as negative 9 divided by 2, and that's negative 4.5. Then we have 7 over 2, which is the same thing as 7 divided by 2, and that's 3.5. And lastly, we have 15 over 3, which is the same thing as 15 divided by 3, and that's positive 5. So now we have to match each of these points with their values. So point P is at negative 8, so that's correct. So the answer is not going to be F, because that is the correct placement for point P on the number line. Point Q is supposed to be at negative 4.5. Point Q right now, if this is 0, this is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Point Q would be at negative 3.5. Point R is supposed to be at positive 3.5, so R is at positive 3.5, so it's not point R. Point S is supposed to be at positive 5, which it is, so our correct answer is that point Q is not correctly placed on the number line. Today's TEK is 8.2D. Our lesson target is that scholars will continue to compare and order a set of real numbers from math and real-world contexts. Our DOL is given 4 problems. Scholars will compare and order real numbers from real-world contexts with 100% accuracy. And before we go into the lesson, I just want to review 2 important words. The first word is ascending, and so that means to go up. So if you're asked to order numbers in ascending order, you're going to be ordering the numbers from smallest to biggest or smallest to largest. So for example, from 0 to 9 or from A to Z. With the word descending, that means to go down. Descending order would be the largest number to the smallest number. So for example, from 9 to 0 or from Z to A. So now we have a poll. Which order is this following list of numbers? We have negative 3.4, negative 2.25, 0.6, and 1.4. So answer choices are A, ascending, B, descending, and C is neither. Then we have a second poll asking what is the order of the list of numbers. We have 5.7, 2.5, 1.9, 0, negative 0.8, negative 1.5. And again, the answer choices are A, ascending, B, descending, C, neither. So on to our first problem. We have Judy, Jacques, Jose, John, and Julia were in a pie eating contest. Each contestant had 30 pies. So as I'm reading the problem, I'm annotating, which means circling the important numbers, underlining the important words. Each pie had a diameter of 9.5 inches. Judy ate 56.3% of her pies. Jacques ate 5/9 of his pies. Jose ate square root of 0.25 of his pies. John ate 4/7 of his pies. And Julia ate 0.6 of her pies. Who came in first, second, and third place? Explain. So the first thing we're going to do is make a table. So we have the contestants on one column, then we have the amount eating in the second column, and finally in the last column we have the decimal form of the real numbers of the percentage or how much of the pies they've eaten. So for Judy, she ate 56.3%. For Jacques, he ate 5/9. For Jose, square root of 0.25. For John, 4/7. And Julia ate 0.6. So now we have to turn all of these real numbers into decimal form so that we can compare the numbers. So 56.3 as a decimal would be 0.563. And so the first way to convert from percents to decimals is to divide by 100. The second way is to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. Then we have 5/9, so 5 divided by 9 is 0.555. So when the 5 repeats, I can just write a line on top. Then we have the square root of 0.25, which when we solve, we get 0.5. So 5/9 and the square root of 0.25 are different because 0.5 is a terminating decimal and 0.5 with a line on top is a repeating decimal. So it's actually 0.55555, which would be greater than just 0.5. Then we have 4/7. 4 divided by 7 is 0.571. And then, of course, Julia ate 0.6. So now we can determine who ate most of their pies. So, of course, it seems like 0.6 is the largest. So Julia came in first place, or the largest amount. And then the second biggest number is going to be 0.571. So that means that John is in second place. And then 0.563 is going to be the third biggest number. So that means that Judy came in third place. And we can see that because in decimal form, 0.6 is the largest number, then 0.571, and then 0.563. For this first iJu problem, it reads, 4 people have found the distance in kilometers across a canyon using different methods. The results are given in the table. Order the distances from greatest to least. So we have Juana at square root of 28, Leanne at 23/4, Ryan at 5.5 with the line on top, so that's 5.5555, Jackson at 5.5. And so step 1 is to turn all the real numbers into decimals. Step 2 is to order the decimals. And step 3 is to turn the decimals back to their original form. So the square root of 28 is 5.29. 23/4 is 5.75. All we did was divided 23 divided by 4. And then, of course, 5.5 is already in decimal form. Then we have 5.5, which is 5.5. So the difference between 5.5 with the line on top, again, is that the 5 is repeating, versus 5.5 is just 5.5 as a terminating decimal. So it stops, but 5.5 will continue to go on. And to just write it shorthand, just to shorten how we write it out, instead of writing all the 5s that continue on, we just write a line on top. From here, we have to order the decimals. So if we're ordering the numbers from greatest to least, the biggest number is going to be 5.75. Then the second biggest number is going to be 5.555. The third largest is going to be 5.5. And the smallest number is going to be 5.29. And then from here, I have to convert these decimals back to their original form to write our answer. So our answer is that Leanne at 23/4 found the greatest distance. Then it was Ryan at 5.5. Afterwards, it was Jackson at 5.5. And lastly, it was Juana at square root of 28. And then we also placed them on the number line. So 23/4 is represented by the red dot. Then we have a blue dot, which is underneath this orange one, but that was the 5.5 with a repeating decimal. And then, of course, the orange is the 5.5, and then the pink is the square root of 28. This next problem is a we-do problem. 4 people have found the distance in miles using a crater. across equator using different methods. The results are given below. We have Jonathan 10/3, Elaine at 3.45, Jose at 3.5, and LaShonda at square root of 10. And we have to order the distances from greatest to least. And so it's the same steps and the same chart with just the different names. This next I do problem reads, the areas of 3 circles are shown. List the circles in order from least area to greatest area. The steps are listed right here. So step 1 is to turn all the real numbers into decimals. Step 2 is to order the decimals. And lastly, step 3 is to turn the decimals back to their original form. So here's a little table with the different circles in the first column, the area of the circles in the second column, and in the third column is the decimal form of the areas. So circle A, according to this picture, the area of circle A is 3 times pi, or 3 pi. And so all we have to do is multiply pi times 3. And so we can fill out the first row for this table. So we have circle A, the area is 3 pi, and the decimal form is it's about 9.42. Then for circle B, we have square root of 7 over 2, which is the same thing as square root of 7 divided by 2. And if we calculate that, we get 1.323. Lastly, circle C is 8.75. And that's already in decimal form, so we just have to rewrite that number. So now we're ordering it from least to greatest. And so the smallest number is going to be this 1.323. Then it's the 8.75. And finally, it's the 9.42. So now we're on to step 3, which is turning the decimals back to their original form. So 1.323 was originally square root of 7 over 2. Then 8.75 was 8.75. And 9.42 was originally 3 pi. So our answer is square root of 7 over 2, and then 8.75 and 3 times pi. This we do problem reads, the table shows the race times of 4 7th grade math teachers who raced. List the math teachers in order from fastest to slowest. We have the table. The steps are the same. There's a column for the decimal form of the time, and then an area to write your final answer. Then we have several you do independent practice questions. And lastly, we have your DOL. So you're answering 4 multiple choice problems in this Google form. Thank you so much for paying attention and following along in today's lesson, and see you in the next math video.